This is the question of the day on Live from the Pulpit.
What do Catholics really believe? Now, you probably know some Catholic people. A good portion of my dad's family claim to be Catholic, although I think that's just a nominal affiliation. Most Catholic people, I think, are good people. The Pope himself, he's a great humanitarian, a great philanthropist. So I want to be clear at the beginning here, this is not a personal attack. What I take issue with are several and various Catholic doctrines. Holy water, purgatory, their view of baptism, what they've done with the Lord's Supper, etc. The list could go on and on. However, the doctrine that I find the most offensive is that of the Pope, especially the belief that he is the Vicar of Christ, the Vicarius Christi. From the Catholic Encyclopedia, the Vicar of Christ is, quote, a title of the Pope implying his supreme and universal primacy, both of honor and of jurisdiction over the Church of Christ. The title Vicar of Christ is more expressive of his, quote, supreme headship of the Church on earth, end quote. No doubt it's evident that the Pope has taken for himself what is not rightfully his, namely, the headship of the Church of Christ. Catch that. It's Christ's church, not the Pope's church. The Bible clearly teaches that Christ is head of his church. Ephesians 5:23, for the husband is head of the wife, even as Christ is head of the church, the body, and is himself its Savior. Wait a minute, Paul, didn't you get the memo that Peter's the new head since Jesus has left? No. Colossians 1 verse 18 says that he, that's Jesus, the Christ, he is head of the body, the church. He is the beginning, firstborn from the dead, that in everything he might be preeminent. The Bible teaches Christ is head of his church. He's never relinquished that in 2,000 years. The claim to be head of the church is the same as if you're claiming to be its Savior, according to Ephesians 5:23. It's a claim even like that of claiming to be the beginning and the firstborn from the dead, even the image of the invisible God, Colossians 1, verse 15, and also verse 18. In addition, the passages that they use to teach the primacy of Peter, and consequently Peter becoming the first pope of the church, the passages they use, they don't teach what they say they teach. From the Catholic Encyclopedia again, quote, the proof that Christ constituted St. Peter head of his church is found in two famous Petrine texts, Matthew 16, 17 through 19, and John 21, 15 through 17, end quote. But these passages do not teach the primacy of Peter. In Matthew 16, verse 18, Jesus says to Peter, he says, I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church. The gates of Hades shall not prevail against it. Now our Catholic friends will say to us that the rock upon which Jesus will build and build his church is Peter. But what is this rock upon which Jesus will build his church? Verse 16 is clear. Simon Peter replied, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. The truth that Peter confesses, that Jesus is Christ, that's the rock upon which Christ's church is built. The other passage, John 21, verses 15 through 17, reads, when they had finished breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? He said to him, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. He said to him, feed my lambs. He said to him a second time, Simon, son of John, do you love me? He said to him, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. He said to him, tend my sheep. He said to him a third time, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Peter was grieved because he said to him the third time, do you love me? And he said to him, Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you. Jesus said to him, feed my sheep. Now, from that text is where they get the primacy of Peter. But here's the thing. Peter was not told to feed the sheep alone. In fact, all of the apostles were previously sent out to the lost sheep of Israel in Matthew 10, verse 6. Plus, this passage is driving toward the call of Jesus in verse 19, where he says to Peter, follow me. Now, this was a charge given to Peter some 3 years earlier on the banks of the Sea of Galilee. You can read about that in Mark chapter 1 and verse 17. If anything, Jesus is reinstating Peter, reassuring him that he's still to be Jesus' disciple along with the rest who would follow Jesus. And of course, the Pope, as well as priests in the Catholic Church in general, they require for lay people to call him Father. In fact, that's what the word Pope means. It's from the Latin, Papa, Father. Now this is something Jesus said we are not to do. He is emphatic about this. Matthew chapter 23 and verse 9, call no man Father on earth, for you have one Father who is in heaven. All of this. Stealing the headship of the church from Christ, improperly elevating Peter to head of the apostles and consequently the church, and requiring an unbiblical practice of calling a man Father here on earth. That leads me, and I hope it leads you, to see that the Catholic Church is simply not Christ's church. I'm out of time. Feel free to leave a comment on the website, a question down in the comments box. If you have one, I'll get to it as soon as I can. Also, LIVE from the pulpit.wordpress.com for the podcast, LIFE from the pulpit.wordpress.com for the blog. Check out Merced Church of Christ website, mercedchurchofchrist.org, mercedchurchofchrist.org, other resources to help you. And as always, grace be with you all. Thanks for listening.